Man, whew, I am finally done with the AC. Everything's wired, everything's tucked away, everything's loomed. Whatever I needed to wrap with as far as electrical tape, things like that, to tidy stuff up, everything is done. This system, again, was not originally in this car, so basically I was kind of almost going from scratch, with the exception of the wiring for my original AC unit was still intact because I kept it, because at some point I figured I was going to add AC, and I'm glad I did, because I made the job easier, because the wiring that I had to do already was already enough. So but it's done. It is done. So just to recap, I pieced a lot of stuff together. Basically the 80% of the AC system is from, or for, it's brand new, but it's for a 89 to 90 box Chevy. So the accumulator dryer is from a 89 box. These AC lines here that goes to the compressor and also to the condenser is from a 89-90 box. This is also for a 89-90 box, the compressor. This back here is the accumulator. It's actually a lot smaller than my stock one, but the reason why I got this one is because the lines come out on this side instead of on that side. My original lines ran over there, from here all the way over there. I didn't want it to do that, so I got this. This condenser is a lot smaller. It actually comes from here to here, and mine actually went from here all the way over, so it was really big and thick. So this one's a lot smaller, so hopefully it won't take so much to cool down, since those condensers can get hot. But I got the fan working on this side, so when the AC cuts on, it pulls the air right in front of the condenser and the radiator. So that's good. And speaking of the fan, when the AC cuts on, this fan, which I think is fan 1 for my temperature sensor on the computer, cuts on immediately when the AC cuts on, and that is wired into a relay, which is this one right here. So I wired it in, not to the computer, because the computer can also run the fans and kind of set the idle and everything, so when the AC cuts on, it kind of bumps up the idle and all that. But I didn't tie it into the computer. I just let it run on its normal relay system that I have over on the AC box. And the only thing that it doesn't do is it puts a lot of load, a little bit more stress when it cuts on, so kind of messes with the idle a little bit. So if I let it run for a while at idle, eventually it'll kind of die out, for some odd reason. I don't know. Well, I mean, I do know, but I don't know why. Sometimes it'll just stay on and then all of a sudden it'll cut out. But in any case, I had to wire a new relay in. So I'm not really good with relays, so I had to do some research, but I made it work actually on the first try. So it's tied into, not only is it grounded and powered by the battery, I also have an inline fuse for it as well. That's kind of tucked away under here. This is the wire, this green wire here, coming, it wraps all the way around, comes under to here, and it's powered into and this whole series of sensors. So basically, shout out to the Griffin brothers, Dwight and Dwayne, for helping me out with this. If you don't follow them on YouTube, I don't know if they're too active on YouTube, but they definitely have an Instagram, Griffin _brothers. They have a couple old schools and do great work as well. But I talked to Dwight, I believe it was, and he told me that these have to be run in series with the power line on your compressor. So basically, one line goes to the power feed, the other line goes to one end of this. So basically, this is your high pressure switch. So one line goes to the power feed of the compressor. The other line from the sensor goes to the other line of this low pressure switch, which basically allows the compressor to cycle on and off. The other line from here goes to the other end of the power feed from the compressor, which goes back to again to the compressor. So it's all kind of like ran in a series like a fuse would be, like an inline fuse. Also tied into this as well is again my relay switch for the fan. So as soon as this cuts on, the fan cuts on. So I have that all wired in as well. So that way it'll help keep the condenser cool and save the compressor and all that good stuff. So the only thing that I have from my original system, obviously the wiring and the AC box and everything, I have the evaporator is still in there. All I did was flush it out. It was pretty dirty, so I flushed it out a few times. I couldn't get it clear as far as fluid coming out. It was still had a kind of like a little tint of dirtiness or brown, but I got it as good as I could. I actually ended up having to open the AC box up. What did I have to open this up for? Oh, because I didn't think the air was getting as cool. So a lot of times on these, there's foam that's wrapped around here, so the air, when it's pumped in, the cold air forces through the evaporator, and that's how the air stays cold and gets cold inside the cabin. So there's foam around here that seals it in, and sometimes that can deteriorate, or some type of insulation. This one had a little bit better insulation, but what I did is I kind of doubled up on it, so that way all the air just forces in, and there's no way around it. It has to go through, so the air stays cold. So that's why I had to open it up. It was never my intention to open up, but I already had the AC charged and everything, so there was no reason for me to undo it again just to replace the evaporator. But if I knew I was going to open it up, then I would have just replaced it. But in any case, it's working. What else? Oh, my vents weren't working inside the cabin, but it wasn't ever a big deal because I didn't have AC and I never used the vents. So the blend door wasn't opening and closing, so I had to figure that out. And it ended up being, I'm not sure if this reservoir ball is working right, because basically this is supposed to be plugged into there, and I think a line from your intake or a carburetor, if you have a carburetor, is supposed to plug in here. But when I plugged it up, it wasn't working, and I think from what I understand, there's a check valve in here, and if the check valve goes bad, then it won't allow the air to kind of go through. So from my understanding, I'm not sure. That's kind of what I researched. So what I did is I just hooked it up straight to a vacuum feed here, teed it off, because I also have this other line going to my blow-off valve for my Pro Charger. But it'll get vacuum from here, and then it goes inside to the selector switch, and then as soon as I hooked that up, air came right out the vent, so everything was good to go there too. So as far as the AC goes, right now I haven't started at all. I kept the gauges on overnight, and all the pressures look good. So what you want to see is as the system shuts down and it sits, you want to see these pressures level off and almost even out. So and they're basically almost dead on. I think this is about 56 pounds, and this is actually just over, that's probably about 56 pounds as well, since it goes up by like 25s, I think. So that's what you want to see. I don't know why, but that's what my research said. I guess that would basically mean that the high and low side is even out on both sides, and that's a good thing. So I also checked it last night, and I actually topped it off with some extra oil because I needed a little bit extra oil. So this gave me 2 pounds of, or 2 ounces of extra oil, and 1 ounce of extra 134A, and that's pretty much exactly what I needed. And I topped it off last night, and the pressures were perfect. So the different pressures vary depending on the ambient temperature outside. Yesterday was about a 65-degree day here. The humidity wasn't much. It's probably like 40%. But when the AC was running and everything, in a 65-degree day, you want to see this get down to about 25 to 35 pounds, somewhere in there, and this will fluctuate between 135 and 150, and then the compressor should cut off and then as soon as it gets back up and reads a certain amount of pressure, then it'll cut back on, and it'll kind of drop back down and kind of sit there about that 25 to 30 range, and then 135 to 145-ish, 150 range. And then again, once it's cycling and hits a certain pressure amount on the low end, then of these two, then the compressor will cut back on, and then it'll kind of just keep doing that, cycling on and off, on and off, on and off. So I don't know if I explained that great or correctly. All I know is I followed a diagram that I found, and that's exactly what it was told me that I should see, and that's exactly what I saw. So everything's perfect. I also confirmed with a couple other guys who are pretty good with ACs, and they said everything looked great too. So all in all, it's working right. So what I'll do is I'll start the car real quick so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about, and then we'll call it a day. So AC is done. I'll end it with the startup. It'll be a cold start. It might idle high because I turned up the idle on this. If you guys didn't know, on these throttles there's an idle screw here that basically pushes up the throttle linkage and opens up the blade inside to get a little bit more airflow on startups. So if you didn't know, now you know. So I'm gonna go ahead and start this thing up, cold start. So make sure I had everything hooked up right before I do this, which I think I do, yeah. So, ooh. So AC, I must have cut it on. Actually, hold up, let me make sure these valves are open first. Good, good. Okay, so I'm gonna cut the AC on. So I don't know if you heard that, it just clicked. Turn this air up. The AC's on, and now it's going to read. So you'll see it's a little bit warmer today, so the temperatures might vary, but compressor's running. Oh, it just shut off, and it just shut off, so now it's adjusting, making adjustments here. So it just cut back on again, just cut back on, so it's cycling. Again, once it gets to about 25-ish to 30, 140 or 140 range, there you go, it went back up, shut off. You can see the accumulator is starting to glaze over, getting ice cold, ice cold. Shut this off real quick. I got my gauge in here. Oh yeah, I still got my gauge. I don't know if y'all can see, so it's getting low. It's creeping down to the 50-ish range, so that's good. I'm happy with that. So yeah, y'all, AC done, AC done. So yeah, if you saw I put a picture up on my last video where I said coming soon, and this was all iced over, and that was because I had the pressure switches wired wrong, so the compressor just kept running, and which made this ice over like ice, like hard to the touch. So if you ever have that happen where your accumulator and lines ice over, it's probably because your compressor is running constantly, or there could be a plug up in the orifice tube or something like that. So also, if y'all didn't know, I used the orifice tube from a 95 Chevy or a 95 Ford truck. So those will help cool temperatures down about 2 to 3 degrees cooler. So from my understanding, I think 2 to 3 degrees or more, I think. So a little trick I learned from somebody. So anyways, that's it, y'all. I'm out of here. I gotta get stuff done, leaving today. So I'll holler at y'all later. Hope this video helps somebody. All right.